Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Pete, we are back Saturday morning. I am
so excited.
I am
so
bouncing,
excited.
I am bouncing in my seat. Films and Stuff podcast. Here we are.
I want to literally reach through my screen and grab you by the shoulders. I am so excited for what we're about to say. And I have to say, Ethan, I mean, we're oftentimes right, but it's rare that we're this right. And I mean, not just this right, but this far in advance. I think this is going back to I don't know, maybe 4 or 6 weeks ago.
Hold on. So we are talking about For All Mankind.
Oh, right.
Season 3, episode 9, the penultimate episode of the season. Spoiler alerts. But as you can tell from Pete's just unbridled enthusiasm, if you've been listening to us for the past couple episodes, a lot of what transpired in this episode has been prognosticated by us. So it is really a vindication episode where a lot of stuff that has happened we have more than just predicted. We've actually kind of manifested. We've said like it should go down like this. And it has in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. And in some ways it hasn't. But where we didn't make those predictions, I'm very happy. To be honest, where the direction has kind of gotten back on track.
Shall we do a brief recap for listeners to get them up to speed on where we are? And then let's dive in.
Absolutely. All right. So Ethan has been working on the summary. I am going to steal his work. I'm going to give you a very quick rundown. So episode 9 of For All Mankind, which is the penultimate episode of season 3, begins with a stable sounding Danny narrating what's been taking place over the last 5 months. So we have a 5-month in-universe jump. Yep. And the effort for the team to leave Mars. And by the team, I mean all three. We have the Russians working with Helios, working with NASA. And they all want to head to the Helios Phoenix spacecraft. And these efforts are kind of working around the fact that Ed is still slightly hobbled from his injury to the gut. And what is now a very visibly pregnant Kelly. So on Earth, we have 3 major plot lines. The first is that Larry has decided to reveal his indiscretion and reveal, the affair that he was having so that he takes the power away from Ellen's detractors in Congress. The second is that Alida has finally now confided in Bill about her suspicions on Margot. Bill is now convinced that Margot is the bad guy. He wants to bring in the FBI. She doesn't want that, but we'll go into that. And thirdly, the Helios board has lost their confidence in Dev, and they're tired of trying to rein him in. They think that he's kind of lost his mind in terms of what the company is meant to be doing. And so they want to remove him as CEO and replace him with, of all people, Karen.
I do love Karen.
We'll get into that. And so ultimately,
obligatory.
Spoiler alert, the episode ends on 2 bombshells. 1, Ellen refuses to let Larry take the bullet and decides that she's going to throw herself to the lions by admitting to everyone that she is in fact gay. The second major bombshell, and this is the one we predicted.
We did.
The Martian crew decides they need to get a piece of machinery from one of the probes that Russia has sent up in the past through other countries. They find that there is a North Korean probe very close, only 9 hours away from their landing base. They go there and they find, dun, 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 footsteps.
Here it is.
And
here it is.
They look up to find a North Korean astronaut pointing a gun at them and then fade to black.
And it's a black gun. Remember, we had some time ago when the first NASA astronauts brought the M16s, they had to be painted white so that they didn't melt. So I thought that was funny that there was a black colored weapon on Mars, on the red planet. Okay, Pete, where do you want to begin?
Oh my God, let's start with the best.
Where do you want to begin?
Let's first of all, I'm sorry to say this, but I think my arm literally is broken from patting myself on the back and from patting you virtually on the back because we called it.
Yeah, we said that there needs to be a fourth country on Mars, and it would be great if, the big three-way space race was all for naught because someone else had beat them up there. That didn't come true when they landed, but now we find that it actually kind of did come true, that there seems to be at least one North Korean on Mars.
And not just come true, but to the point that literally on the 4th of July, Ethan and I sat and discussed on this very show that what would make sense is that they made a point of saying that North Korea launched a probe. And I said, hey, what if it's not just a probe? Yeah. What if it's a manned mission, but we don't know that it's manned because maybe they put someone in hypersleep in there or whatever kind of sleep in there. So no one would figure it out.
I'm super happy about this because obviously it vindicated us and it showed that we were following kind of that little clue that they gave. But practically, why is it that North Korea didn't make any statement? Why is, as far as we're aware, there's been no statement at all by the North Korean government in terms of, hey, we're first or we're even there, right? That's
true.
Isn't that kind of strange?
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right, Ethan. And I think there are two, let's say, logic plot holes with this. But, and you're right. One,
I fixed that plot hole, by the way. I fixed the plot hole, by the way. You tell the plot hole and I'll tell you the fix.
Perfect. So the first major plot hole I can think of, okay, is that the North Korea we know in the real world, out of the show, is very open and transparent and boastful about its rocket program and its quote unquote abilities, and they're happy to take credit for wins, losses, whatever it is. They take credit for anything and everything. So it's kind of odd that in this show, which of course I understand it's an alternate history and but they still do take a lot of elements from the real world. So it's kind of surprising that, as Ethan exactly rightly pointed out, why wouldn't North Korea take credit for saying, hey, we got a man on Mars? I have one possible solution, but what's your solution to this?
So I'm going to guess what your solution is. I'm going to guess your solution is that there's some type of communication error, or even the dude's sensors malfunctioned when they took off. So they said to save face, hey, it's unmanned. They thought the guy kind of died in takeoff and all communication was lost. So they said it was unmanned just to save face. They have actually no idea that the guy is alive and made it there.
I am with you. In fact, I was going to go one step further. I thought this was going to be a case of the Russians with Laika, which is they sent this guy going up there knowing that it was a one-way trip. And that he was and they said that it was unmanned, but it wasn't because they knew, hey, we don't have satellites up there. We don't have a communication system. We don't know what's going to happen to this guy. We don't know if he's going to make it. And more importantly, even if he does make it, we don't actually have any way to communicate with him anyways.
All right.
That was my feeling as well.
I think that's a very realistic outcome. And I'd kind of assume that's going to be how it is.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because in season 2, when Danielle is talking to the Russian cosmonauts in that bar, they specifically made that story.
Yeah,
they talked about Laika. Yeah. They said, hey, Laika, that was a one-way mission. The dog died almost immediately. So I think that's the same kind of mindset or mentality, or at least that's one, not elegant, but one solution for the riders if they need one.
Why give the guy the gun? Why is the guy pointing the gun? You should be happy.
Well, no, it could also just be, hey, you take a gun to commit suicide in case things go awry, right? Yeah. It's like the modern version of the cyanide pill.
So they gave him food or no food, do you think?
I think he's been there for a while. My speculation at this point is that he's going to be like a guy he thinks that he's seeing aliens in his mind, or he's seeing like a mirage. He doesn't believe them. I don't think that he is prepared for anything in terms of foreigners.
All right. So I think that's the realistic one. Here's my going out on a limb would be more entertaining.
Yeah.
Margot is aware that the North Koreans have a space program, and she makes a deal with them to avoid continued blackmail and potential prosecution. And that is, she will give them next generation secrets as long as they keep the launch and the mission quiet, like non-public, so that she doesn't suffer the indignity of being the NASA director who lost out to North Korea. We find out that she knew all along, and she said, hey, I'll give you all this other stuff, but you've got to promise not to make it public that you've got someone on Mars before me.
Okay. I like it because it's outlandish. I'm not sure how, but for exactly the same reason, I think it's a little hard to swallow because it's outlandish.
Yeah. That's my out on a limb, but I agree. I think the most likely one is they think it's just kind of a one-way ticket. He lost all communications and he's there by himself, and they want to save face, and that's why they say it was unmanned.
But your second out on a limb solution does lead me to my second plot hole with this.
Tell me.
They've got Helios orbiting Mars. They've got NASA probes orbiting Mars and like telescopes. They've got sensor data all over Mars, right? They're able to predict weather patterns. They're able to take pictures from the atmosphere. Are you telling me that they don't have information for a site that's only 10 miles away or 10 hours away?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that they wouldn't have seen a probe that has landed, and not just landed, but then a guy walking around?
I mean, I think I go back to actually an earlier point, which is if you're NASA or the Department of Defense, everything that's launched, you should be tracking to see where it goes, manned or unmanned. And I agree, maybe they haven't been scanning the surface to find one capsule, but that actually is undermined by the episode itself, where they have a very detailed map of where everything has landed. I mean, hey, call up on your laptop where everything is from Turkey, India, North Korea. Oh, well, here's one only 89 kilometers away. Oh, great. Let's go there. So obviously they've got these pinpoints somewhere. I'm with you. I'm extraordinarily surprised that this is the first time that we heard that there's apparently, like, from what I recall, like 5 or 10 little pinpoints on the map of Mars.
Yep.
With different probes. It seems like they would have been monitoring all of those to say, like,
all of them, right?
Yeah.
And you can't turn around and say, well, it's one probe. Maybe they don't have sensor data that's detailed enough. Heck, if you can find an aquifer of water that's underground from the atmosphere, how can you not find a metal probe that's on the surface?
I agree with you. I think that's absolutely a plot hole. Not fatal, but for sure that's glossed over.
And I'm not saying that they can't work around it, right? I mean, the guy's first mission or first job on Mars could be to dig sand, throw sand all over the probe, do something, right? I'm certain that there are ways that they can build around that. Or, they can take off the transponder chips to make the ship like radio wave silent or whatever it is. Look, I'm not a scientist, but there are definitely ways you can get around that, but in terms of plot holes, that's one.
You know, the more you talk about it, though, the more it undermines the storyline, which is, okay, they have no communication with this guy. It's a one-way mission. He's trying to cover his tracks, right? He's got a gun. It's been at least 5 months, right? I mean, we know that there's a flash forward here of 5 months. It's been a little bit longer. Let's
Plus
just say
however long he's been there, right? Because the probe
he was
launched
first. Yes.
Yeah, the probe launched like almost maybe a year before, or maybe several months at the very least before NASA and Helios and Mars took off from Earth.
I mean, what has he been? I mean, they did not pack that thing with 6 months worth of like rice and potatoes or canned tuna, right? I mean, does he have a water recycler? Does he have sanitation? Does he have like all the things that we've seen the group on Mars complain about is so difficult to get, you know, ventilation and this aquifer and this thing. He's by himself. Maybe there's one other person. Let's assume that person died. There's one other person. Like, it seems highly unlikely the more we talk about it that one or two people have been sustaining for more than 6 months, possibly even a year, right?
I think it becomes more interesting if it's just the one lone guy who's kind of lost his mind. You know, the cliche is the guy who gets lost out in the desert with no water, no supplies. Yeah. He sees a cactus, but because he's so desperate, he thinks that's a human being, that kind of thing. I think that's where we're going now. If you have more than one person on from North Korea on there, then the plot holes start to get a little bit bigger.
Maybe you ate that person.
Or maybe, right? I mean, you can kind of explain away one guy stuck, thrown into a probe. You can kind of get away with that. Anything beyond that, you start digging a bigger plot hole.
So where do you think this goes from here? Okay, they're obviously going to like calm the guy down. They're going to take the pieces that they need. Presumably, they're going to bring that guy back, and now he's going to be part of the team, right? Whether he speaks English or no English, whether he's friendly or hostile. I mean, I feel like they're not just going to shoot him and move on. They're probably going to bring him with them, right?
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that somebody on the crew, and when I say crew now, by the way, I think that's the other thing we predicted last week. This is no longer 3 disparate crews working together as a ragtag group. Yeah. This is now one crew. Yeah. I think everyone has decided, hey, Helios is going to be our ticket home.
I think that's a nice development.
The Phoenix space station. Yeah. So we're going to work together. We're all going to be staying in the same hab. There's no point, and good for them, because I think, and I like the fact that they kind of glossed that over, because, and Danielle has kind of become the team leader. Yep. Which also I like. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't need to see more politics. 9 episodes in, I don't need to see more politics and hemming and hawing. I like the fact that they're acting now, or by acting as in they're moving. There's action going forward.
I agree.
I suspect that with this North Korean guy, one of the crew members, if not more, dies at his hands. I don't think it's going to be Danielle. It could be the Russian commander, but I don't see it. But I can't help but imagine that they would introduce an antagonist in the last 5 minutes of the 9th episode, only for him to be kind of a dud in the 10th episode. I expect some kind of Mexican standoff. Yeah. And then I expect that one person is going to, for example, Danielle is going to be like, let's play it cool. And then I think the Russian commander is going to be like, we don't have time for this. He makes a move. He gets shot. Danielle takes the guy down, captures him, but then loses the Russian commander at the same time.
So they do something interesting in the show that you and I have picked up on if you kind of follow the cadence, which is they make statements, and that statement seems to be very innocuous at the time, and then it's a precursor of what's to come. And one thing that Danny said to me at the very beginning when he was narrating was, He was kind of like, I guess, leaving a message to his wife or someone. And he said, I'm not sure how all 9 of us here are going to fit into Popeye and get up to Phoenix.
Yeah.
And to me, that indicated 2 things. First of all, I'm not sure why it can't make 2 trips, but I guess it's because there's not enough fuel and they put a big emphasis on fueling. And 2, if they were worried about 9 people, now if they're going to add this dude, that's 10. It seems like someone's going to get left behind, either because they die or because there's a small mutiny and some people get left behind, or some people heroically volunteer to be left behind, right? Like Ed says, right, this is the Armageddon scene, right? Kelly, take it, I'll stay behind, blah, 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 take care of my daughter. So I felt like that line was very important, foreshadowing something that not everybody is going to be able to cram into Popeye, and it's not going to have enough gas, literally, to get everybody up to Phoenix.
Great read, because I missed that, and that is a great read. And that's you're absolutely right. That is 100% the way this show has gone in the past. Seemingly benign lines have ended up being precursors to something very important.
Is there anything else that you caught that you think is going to be a precursor to what's going on? I've got one more that I
wonder if it's the same. The only other major thing was the report on the accident.
Oh, that's not mine, but let's hear yours. Yeah, go for it.
So Helios finally sends the guys on Mars the report on the accident as to why this happened.
The drilling accident investigation report. Nonsense. Do you agree?
Which is it's nonsensical for a variety of reasons. Least of which is, why is it being conducted on Earth and then the report being sent to Mars? I feel like it should be the other way around.
Did they hire McKinsey to video interview everybody? Totally nonsense. So the way that this apparently went, and this is obviously my respect to the writers, obviously written by someone who's never been part of an investigation report.
Yeah.
They think that this report, where they have to essentially talk to 3 different companies, right? No one is giving these interviews willfully, and everyone's got a lot of time on their hands, right? And that's the only way they can get this information. They've got to interview everybody from 2 different countries, 3 different entities. They've got to, within 5 months, release a report. That's impossible just from a timing perspective, right? And 3, whatever point number I'm on, because I'm losing track because I'm so wound up about this. They just email it to Ed and say, FYI attached, here's the investigation report.
Not top secret, open in front of everybody.
Feel free to just read it out loud to everybody, right?
On the main screen. But you're absolutely right. In no corporation does a management-led investigation, or in this case, an audit of any kind, get released to the employees. In any way, shape, or form. I don't understand. It's what happened in the boardroom is accurate, right? You have the results of the audit, and then that you use that as leverage to get people in or out. But then under no circumstances should the results of that audit have been sent to the people that the audit was about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
that's unheard of.
So I think this was an example of they wanted to get to the point where Danny could demonstrate who seems to be doing quite well, by the way, seems to be demonstrating some survivor guilt, right? Yep. They wanted to get to that point, and that's how they did it. I think there's other ways to get there. But I hear that point. But I also have to say, if the report said, hey, this is Nick's fault, I'm not sure I disagree with that. Nick was a casualty. God bless his soul. But it actually was his fault. Ed said, hey, Nick, you're in charge. Nick is next to a obviously coked out, unstable, unreliable Danny and says, hey, Danny, watch this while I turn my back on the other side of the room. That's entirely Nick's responsibility, actually. Right?
Yeah, it's his responsibility. He's delegating, but fair enough. I agree.
Don't delegate to someone who you know is like barely holding it together, right?
It's a lot of, maybe not elegant, but I think the way they could have gone out of on this is, Ed sends an email or a voice note to Karen privately. He's like, hey, what's going on with this audit? Who was the person in fault? She privately sends him the thing, look, I'm not allowed to send it to you, but it turns out it's not any of one's fault. It's Nick's fault. And then we all know in the last 5 or 6 episodes, Danny has been sneaking and looking at behind, and he learns about it, and then he starts acting out, and nobody knows why.
I agree. Way better. Way better.
Still lots of issues with the actual report itself, but at least in terms of how that information gets disseminated is much more plausible.
I agree. I mean, that's where you and I and kind of like our real world experience with this type of stuff undermines a totally decent storyline that a lot of people don't catch, but for us that obviously sticks in our craw because we're like, no way that would.
This isn't how the real world would work, even in an alternate history. Yeah. And I think, and the beauty of this is that would also then allow Ed to start finally figuring it out that, oh, maybe Danny has been spying on my communications.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point. You're right. Because
right now, there's no, at the end of episode 9, Danny's about to confess his entire shtick to Ed, but he gets saved in the nick of time by the crew saving them. Yeah. Now we move 5 months forward, and Karen hasn't admitted to Ed what's going on, even though she promised she would. And Danny hasn't admitted to Ed what's going on because, well, he got saved and he didn't want to now. So again, we're back in this holding pattern with the 3 of them, which, I mean,
I'm
you're
happy
going to do that in episode 10, that's fine, but it has to be done this season, because if this continues for another season, you've now stretched something out like a soap opera would, and that's not what the show is about.
So I have to say, I like this version of Danny much more, right? I really like the put together, helpful, like, this is the more heroic type Danny that I want to see. He's much more likable in this episode, and I think that's his sweet spot. I really hope that he stays in this headspace and he doesn't go into this really weird
downward spiral again.
Yeah, because he feels some type of like guilt over the Nick thing. I really would have, I was happy where he was now, and I even would have liked someone to have said, hey, we're really proud of how you pulled yourself together. I needed you to step up and be a leader. And because he's, that first scene, we really see him, doing a good job. He's got kind of like a good sense of humor. He's very personable. He's diligent, hardworking. Like, I like that version of him. And that's what we need, is to focus on all these other parts and not kind of the historical Earth-based drama.
He's over the last, how do we say this? Over the last 5 episodes, maybe a little longer, he's kind of been shown as like this bad guy, but like in a very nasty way. I think he comes off better as a character, not as the outright antagonist, but as someone who's like, look, I'm the good guy who made a mistake.
I agree.
And I'm suffering because of this mistake. And rather than in the last couple episodes where he was like, no, I'm the bad guy. I'm spying on you. Yep. I'm a voyeur. I'm taking drugs. Yep. And I nearly killed the antagonist. Yep. It goes too far. Yep. Let's shift back to, I'm the good guy.
Yeah.
I broke up your marriage. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. And let me work on the guilt of that. Yeah. He didn't feel guilty about that, which is the problem I was having with him.
Yes.
In fact, he was spiraling further and further away into villainy, into that. And now he's kind of been like, okay, now I've made 2 mistakes. One, my mistakes has been now pinned onto Nick, which I don't like. so I'm going to be resentful about it, but I'm the good guy. And the second is this infidelity thing. Those things have to be kind of addressed in this season because, again, it's got to give closure at the end of the season. If this is another looming plot thing for next season, I'm not going to like it at all.
Totally agree with you. So let's turn our attention to Helios. What do you think of this boardroom drama, the executive drama, the potential sale of Phoenix to NASA? Is this compelling storyline or this is just plot filler?
This is not compelling, but this is for two reasons. Okay? Actually, three. The first and maybe most important is I hate Karen. But we forget about reason number one.
Disagree. Respectfully.
But I come down to this, right? So the point is that Helios is run as this private corporation, and Dev is the guy who's like the outlier, right? He's the unconventional CEO that the board has hired. Fine. And now the board wants to get rid of him and put someone in who's more conventional. Excuse me, Karen isn't a conventional CEO either. She went from being, and again, no disrespect, but she went from being the astronaut's housewife to a bar owner to a space tourism owner to now the CEO of Helios. This is like the definition of Americans failing upwards. In the sense that there are skill sets that it takes to be the CEO of any corporation. And certainly the bigger the corporation and the more important the corporation, the bigger that skill set is, or at least the more specialized that skill set is. So far, except for the fact that she's proven herself to think a little bit outside the box, which guess what? Dev already does. She hasn't really identified or shown anything that would lead me to believe that she would be a better leader than Dev in any regard except for one, which is to say she may be a little bit more grounded in terms of numbers.
So I hear your points. Let me counter that by saying she has not actually been appointed as the CEO. It seems like the board is just kind of like tossing it around.
Yeah.
Could this be setting us up for two or one dramatic things? One, if Dev is ousted, he goes to Russia, North Korea, somewhere else, or starts his own competing entity.
I think he Steve Jobs it, yeah.
Or is this now the vacancy and you say Karen's not qualified, but you know who is? Ellen Waverly, who may be looking for a new job. Is this the way that they open up that and Karen says, hey, I'm not the person, but I'm pretty good friends with someone who is, and she has a good resume and is looking for a job. Maybe
or will certainly be in the next 2 years, right?
Maybe that's how it goes. And Ellen says, hey, I don't want to run for president again. I do have a lot of support now. From what they indicated, it's not like she's going to be impeached or not voted in again. I think they're a little bit silent about it, but it doesn't seem like there's a huge backlash against her. But maybe she says, hey, I don't want the scrutiny. I did my 4 years. I want to get back to my roots. This is a great job. I've obviously got a huge disaster on Mars. This is what I think I can do best. And she takes that job.
And I'll tell you, if there's one person who can convince that board that we should be going back to Mars, because they kind of now want to contract and say, hey, let's get back to our core operations.
So silly.
Let's continue mining on Mars. If there's and whereas Ellen, who has been fighting to keep going to Mars with the government, I think if there's one person who that naturally fits, Ellen is the right person to say, hey, board members, I'm the ex-president of the United States. Believe me, funding is no longer going to be an issue.
If this bill passes, as she said, NASA's never going back.
Yeah.
So essentially, Helios would say, "Hey, we've got it entirely to ourselves."
And then you get the entire. So she'll be like, "Listen, you can monetize the entire planet as far as we're concerned now.
You've just got to share it with North Korea."
or Russia in this case, right? Whatever it is. So I worry a little bit about the fact that Karen may in fact finally decide, yes, I want to be the CEO, because she always seems to be striving for more.
Yeah.
But I think one of her core problems is she doesn't know actually what she wants, and that's where she was getting all this ennui from. And she's like, when is she ever going to be happy?
You could also envision something where she's kind of like the interim CEO, and she finds out like all the stuff that she has to do is not what she enjoys doing. She enjoys being kind of the deal maker, right? And she's like, oh man, like board minutes and resolutions, and I've got to do this thing and this thing. She's like, budgeting,
and investor presentations. This,
yeah. She's like,
and
she's like, look, this isn't for me.
Leave me to be biz dev. Leave me to be COO. Let me negotiate with Russia. These are the things that are in my wheelhouse, and more importantly, these are the things that I'm happy doing.
Yeah.
Sitting down and doing the mundane things and leading from the top, not my thing. I'm more of a foot soldier. That I can see as well.
Yeah. How do you feel about the board? I mean, do you see their perspective?
So it comes down to, and I know we've never really talked about it in the show, but it comes down to money, which is to say, if the board is really hurting for cash, I understand where they're coming from. Yeah, I totally get it. They want to make the sale. They don't of the spaceship. They don't want to make the sale. They don't know. And we've talked about this a couple, maybe more than a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. We were asking, what is the financial reasoning or logic behind Helios even being in Mars? Are they mining? Are they setting up tourism? What are they doing? We don't really know even to date. We kind of got the idea that on the moon they've been mining, right? They talk about helium-3.
Yeah.
So one of my feelings is that on the practical side, I get what they're saying. But, if you're a private company and if you have the funding, I say go for, shoot for the moon.
Well, hold on. There's a few things to unpack here. And again, we're in a good position to do this. They say our share price is tanking. So that means it's not a private company. All right, that's a mistake. It's either a public company, or it's private, right? But they make this mistake, right? I hear their point about it being a private company, and it has a lot of expenditures. But I think what the board said made a lot of sense in some ways, but I'll qualify it. First, what they said is, hey, we've got to get back to basics. We tried going to Mars. Let's not do that again. Let's stick to the moon for now. Makes a lot of sense. Except that they also said, hey, we've got all these lawsuits. Two problems. One, what lawsuits? NASA's suing you? No. Russia's suing you? No. You had 2 employees die? That's not a lawsuit. I mean, realistically, they were astronauts. I mean, you didn't intentionally. They will have
had some kind of civil liability clause.
Yeah.
In there,
so come on. There's no. I mean, you caused a landslide. Yeah, on a planet that's uninhabited. Who is suing you? The property owners? The homeowners? There's nothing there. So this is nonsense, one. And secondly, I think that, Dev came back with a very good comeback, which is, hey, how many people died in the original Jamestown? You've got to keep going. And he was right about it. He was absolutely right about it, which is, we've got to go on. And then my second point is, though, how is this company not making money? Because they have Phoenix, they have Popeye. They must be saying to NASA and to Russia, hey, you want your guys to come back? We need $2 billion.
Yeah,
that's the cost of housing your team is $1 billion Russia, $1 billion NASA. So it strikes me as totally unreasonable that they are not kind of breaking even on this trip. There's no liability. It's an expensive trip. Yeah.
For me, the worst case scenario is that this mission all the way through to Mars, including the death of all those people on the Helios side, the worst case scenario is that they break even financially.
Yes.
Because at some point, you're absolutely right. I would issue an invoice to NASA. I would issue an invoice to the Russian Space Agency and say, hey, guys, we can't do this for free. We're happy to do this for our own employees because that's a cost for us. Yeah. That's an internal cost. We will bear that. But we can't keep taking more and more people on. And guess what? The variable cost for something like this is much, much higher.
I absolutely agree. And you know that they're going to pay that. And then, you know what? There's something else that you made me think about. Dev's position is totally wrong. Why? Karen says, hey, let's sell. I've got an idea to make money. Let's sell Phoenix to NASA. And Dev, who just gets done pitching to the board this new Calypso.
Oh, the latest ship. Yeah.
Says, no, we can't sell Phoenix. Why? Phoenix is going to be obsolete. It was a hotel. You bought it only because you were desperate. Why would you not want to sell that old floating hotel and put the money into Calypso? That would be what
something purpose-built.
Yeah, exactly. That would be what Dev wanted to do. So it just didn't make sense to me that he was so opposed to selling Phoenix. You're not going to use it again. Build Calypso.
This is what I mean by saying that in this regard, I do think Karen is a little bit more grounded in reality, which is to say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, cash is king.
Cash is
king.
And,
you know, we all know that cash flow is what basically kills a company, or lack thereof anyway. It doesn't make sense to me. You're right. On a business perspective level, that kind of pushback doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Let me highlight one other line that I caught, and you tell me if this is foreshadowing something that's going to happen. There was a scene where Kelly is in like the sick bay, and, you know, they're giving her all the diagnostics, right? Checking out her pregnancy. And obviously it's public knowledge worldwide that she's pregnant. So it's good that this hasn't become a drama yet. And they say something like, hey, how is she going to fit into her Helios suit? Well, we haven't figured that out. And then the Russian dude says, she should wear a Russian suit. We've got...
It's more stretchy.
Yeah, he basically says it's made out of spandex, right? Yeah. Yours is made out of hard plastic. Ours is made out of spandex. It will fit over her pregnant belly better. And Ed says, hey, that's not a bad idea. I don't know where that's going, but I thought that was so unusual that it's going to somehow be when she lands, they want her to be wearing like the Russian
uniform. Yep. And it's such a great catch, because I did remember that, but I didn't think anything beyond that. Yeah. And that's a great point, because such a throwaway line, especially because Ed kind of looks off into the distance and says, you may be right.
Yeah.
Or actually that's a good idea. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. The picture of a pregnant American astronaut wearing a Russian uniform is powerful. The kind of propaganda that Russia would love to have.
Yeah. I'd be like, hey, wear whatever suit fits. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, like, if the shoe fits, if the glove don't fit. Anyway. Where do you want to go first? I've got two other major things. One is Margot, the other is Oval Office recording. Which one are you?
So let's do Oval Office and end with Margot. I think the Margot is spicy.
I found this whole thing, and I wish we had a constitutional law expert, but I found this whole thing about the Oval Office recording a little bit unnecessary.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're pretty stupid talking about this if they know that everything is being recorded. Two, if things are recorded, there is executive privilege. They're not going to be able to, I would think, get a copy of this recording. I mean, then they talk about, should we erase it? Should we redact it? I thought this whole thing was just a little bit unnecessary. I thought it was better that Larry said, hey, when my boyfriend gets out of rehab, like, he's going to
turn on me.
He's going to turn on me.
Yeah.
So we should be prepared. But I thought that ending was pretty powerful. I have to say. I thought that was pretty powerful.
I have to say, I think the tapes thing issue was more just a means to an end.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything of it. I think it was just them kind of using that flippantly as a way to remind you of, hey, remember, and not just in the past, but even in the very recent past, we've seen missing tapes / records, 16 minutes of silence or whatever it was. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of fobbed it off, which is to say, it's fine, whatever, if it gets you to get to where Ellen ends that speech. And the moment he admits that he was going to just say, hey, I've been cheating on my wife, I'm the bad guy, she had nothing to do with it, I knew she was going to step in on that podium and take the bullet for him. I
agree. But can I go back just one step? Let's go with his plan, right?
Yeah.
And his plan is, hey, I'm the first gentleman, I'm going to go up and I'm going to admit that I had a homosexual affair with a staffer, right? How does that possibly put her in a better position? Like, it's not like, okay, well, he did it. Let's just get that bill approved, right? Or let's get the bill vetoed. I would feel if he would make that admission, it would set off a circus. She is absolutely not in a better place. First female president. I think she
comes off worse.
I absolutely agree. I think she should have said, like, whoa, wait a second. You're not just admitting that you cheated on me. I'm the first. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a spouse who's cheated on a president openly. I'm the first woman president. So now you've cheated on me and you're going to humiliate me globally. And just to make it a little bit worse, it wasn't even a heterosexual affair. She should have been like, Larry, how is that putting me in a better position? Yeah. I appreciate you wanting to step up to the plate and think you're doing the right thing, but I felt like that would even make things way worse for her, right?
Yeah, I understand the logic in Larry's eyes, right? Which is to say, hey, look, if I take this bullet now, I'm taking that bullet away from the senators who are holding you hostage. And that's fine. You're removing the ammunition from them, but you're adding more ammunition overall to the government to say, hey, if the president doesn't even know what's going on in her own bedroom, how can we trust her to know what's going on in our country?
And he lied. It just would have been a disaster. It
undermines the agenda for everything.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
In this case, again, and you and I may be reading too much into it, but I think this is a practical reality, which is in a show where, Dave, in the last couple episodes talked about, you have to think of the consequences. I don't think they thought too much about the consequences of him admitting to it here. Yeah. And I think that's why she didn't do any pushback, give too much pushback, is because, hey, she's like, listen, I'm not going to let you take the fall anyway. I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet. I'm going to admit to everyone that I'm gay. And guess what? Even though you still perjured yourself, all that kind of gets swept under the rug because this is far more valuable to everybody. I will say that speech she gave, very rousing. I thought it was very good. Nice. I thought it was very elegant. I don't think we're going to see any negative blowback on her in this season. I think what we're going to see, season 4, at the beginning of the season, you know how they did the montage at the beginning of this season? Yeah. I think we're going to get a small montage. And I think in that montage, we're going to learn that she was not reelected or she was impeached, whatever it's going to be. And she was basically, even though the people are with her, the government isn't, and that's why she was taken out.
Yeah.
So she's going to come out as Bill Clinton-esque, which is to say, gone in disgrace governmentally, but not in the eyes of the people.
Yeah, I think that's right. So now shall we turn to maybe our favorite part, Margot.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I have to state, can I just start off by saying...
Make a statement.
What did Alita think was going to happen with this investigation?
You know what? I've got the exact same thing, which is I felt like she wanted the decision taken out of her hands. She's the one who approached Bill. She's the one who walked him through the whole thing. What did she think was going to happen if she convinced him that she was right, he'd say, oh man, well, that's stressful. Like, good luck with this. And he's just going to walk away. Like, I felt like maybe she was protesting because she wanted to, it was like a fake protest, and that she just didn't want to be the one to rat out Margot, and she knew she couldn't do it. But I felt like she was so openly, didn't make sense.
Pissed off at the FBI. I get that, they harassed your dad or whatever it is. I don't know. Okay, fine. Let's assume you hate the FBI and don't trust them at all. You are now in the situation you're in where you're convinced that Margot has committed treason. Yeah. You've got the evidence. You've figured it out. Yeah. All right. You've put two and two together, and you're the only one that's figured it out. What did you think was going to happen? You were going to talk to Margot, and then Margot was going to break down in tears, and then Margot was going to give herself up to the police? That was never going to happen.
And even if she gives herself up to the police, what's the benefit of that? What does Alita want out of this? I feel like she doesn't
exactly. I mean, no matter what, because this is a treason case, or at least an espionage case, no matter what, the FBI is getting involved. And that's what they said at the end of the episode. They said, listen, even if you're not in it anymore, it doesn't matter. The ball's rolling. We're gone. You can either help us push this over the goal line, or we'll get there on our own. And then, she goes off and throws her little hissy fit, tears down her wall of evidence, which is, fine. And then she blames a little bit on Bill, and obviously it's nothing serious, but what do you expect Bill to do in the same situation too, right?
Yeah. I would have liked it. So first of all, did you find it a little bit strange that she's worried about someone disclosing confidential information to the Russians, and she's basically showing all the information to Bill? Who works at a competitor?
No, not really, because, he's kind of like they're good friends, they were colleagues, and more importantly, they were colleagues at a time when all of this was happening.
I get it. So I think it went a little, I was going a little bit overboard on trade secrets, but you see a little bit of the irony, hey, I'm going to disclose all this confidential information to you so you can help me assess whether or not someone gave confidential information to someone else. Wait a second. Yeah. In a way, you're actually doing the exact same thing that you're trying to investigate. You're doing the same wrong behavior. But anyway.
Yeah.
I would have liked that Alita brought Bill in, and bravo to Bill for having finally a good scene with a few lines, right?
And the cojones to do what's right.
And obviously is the adult in the room, and then maybe that's why he was her boss at one point. And I would have liked Alita to do this mock protest, but then we kind of see her after she storms off, we kind of see her leaning against a wall or something and doing some type of facial expression or smirk where she's like, that's exactly what I wanted to have done. I just didn't want to be the one to do it. I wanted to be able to tell Margot with a straight face, I didn't go to the FBI. I didn't have anything to do with this, But I felt
I don't see that for her. I don't see that for her, though. I think that's a little too calculating, and almost because the thing is, the one thing about Alita was since she was introduced to us in the show as an adult, she's always been straight to the point. She's always shot from the hip. And she's never been that, that person. In fact, that's why she got sacked from the NASA program the first time, was because she told her boss off and she wasn't happy with things. Remember, that was the reason that she used to get into fights with Bill as well.
All the more that her inability to take any action towards Margot is just...
it's a bit weird.
It's befuddling, right?
It's a little weird, but kind of maybe understandable because Margot was her mentor. Yeah. She brought her into the system. And then on top of that, the people she would have had to work with against Margot are the same people she hates the most in the FBI. So I kind of get that. I don't agree with it, but I kind of get that. I mean, for someone who's as smart as she is, I would have just been like, well, what did you expect? Yeah. Right? Of course the FBI was going to get involved. So why are you now acting petulant and shocked about this? This is something you should have wrestled with 3 or 4 episodes ago, not on the verge of it actually happening to Margot.
Yeah, true. So this is, I guess, where we're going. I mean, we've got one more episode in the season 3, right? Episode 10 is next week. And
That's
it
right.
seems like we're really going to focus on, now we've got the new North Korean astronaut, and Margot is absolutely going to be investigated, it seems. These are primary storylines. We may see a little bit of Ellen and the fallout. We haven't seen anything from Danny's wife. We haven't seen anything from Danny's brother. Kelly, I should say, is now having some pre-labor complications. We only saw a headshot of Pam. We haven't, nothing else, nothing from Sergey. This is where we are for the last episode, huh?
Yeah. There's a lot of loose threads to tie up.
Yeah.
I will say that. I'm hoping the episode is maybe
2 hours?
A little longer. Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, I don't know how long, but a little longer, just because there is a lot for them to get through.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I really want to see what happens to Margot. It seems I cannot see a way where she survives this.
Yeah. And I think she's going to fold immediately. I don't think she's got the stones to lie to the FBI or try to figure out something sophisticated. I think she folds like a cheap deck of cards.
I'm still banking on
like
the fact. I'm still banking on the fact. Mixed metaphors. I'm still banking on the idea that she flees and is somehow reunited with Sergey in Russia, that she somehow evades prosecution or imprisonment. It seems like this is her only way out, because I agree. We don't want this to be another government investigation. I mean, we saw this drilling accident investigation report, right? I mean, I don't see how she can be unscathed if the FBI is really going to investigate. I mean, it just doesn't seem like she's going to, be able to survive that level of scrutiny. There's nothing that she's involved in that's like so critical that I think she'll be able to kind of leverage, like the fact that she needs to be there. She doesn't have a very strong ally. Margot doesn't have any ally. She's not close to Ellen. This general...
she's burned bridges with everyone. Bridges with everyone.
Yeah, there's
Molly,
no one...
all of them.
There's just no one that she really has, to save her.
I think the only way she gets out of it is she gets approached by the FBI. They inform her that she's under investigation or whatever. And I think she goes to that Russian leader, the Russian lady who's heading the Space Command.
Yeah.
And I think that she goes to her and says that, listen, you need to get me out of here. I think you need to get me out of here. I will go and work for Roscosmos and work with Sergey again.
Yeah. I would say if there was can you name, apart from Margot and Alita, can you give me the name of anybody else who works at NASA? I cannot.
No.
So the problem is there's no number 2 that she can blame this on, Like, let's say Bill was still there. Or, let's say Molly was still there. If Molly was still there, then you could kind of come up with a scenario where she says, hey, that wasn't me. All this points to Molly. And they she manipulates some evidence or fabricates something. And suddenly Molly's the one who's arrested, right? But there's no number 2 that you can even point to say, hey, these two have this beef or they have this competition. Maybe she'll, try to throw this person under the bus. Apart from Alita, who's the whistleblower, there's no one to pin this on. Yeah. And actually that's poor planning, because it would be way more interesting if Margot was trying to kind of throw Molly under the bus, right? That would be cool. And you could say, Molly's got this crazy husband, they do this and they do this and they went here. And, she could try to, misdirect the investigation towards Molly. And suddenly we're like, whoa, do you think Molly's going to take the fall for this? That would be more fun.
Yeah, maybe. I still like the idea that, at the end of that episode, Molly is introduced as the new head of NASA.
Yeah. That's becoming, I love that, but again, that's becoming...
It's less likely.
Less and less likely because she just hasn't been... We haven't heard from her. We haven't seen her in more than half a season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we saw her last when she got sacked, and that's it.
Yeah. So, I think the idea that... and she was... not that being blind has anything to do with it, but you do have to read quite a bit. The fact that she has a disability now, the fact that she's been out of the loop, and the fact that she was not really a administrator to begin with, right? She was a pilot, and she was in charge of choosing astronauts. She wasn't like a number 2 administrator. She wasn't like a technologist. I think given that her absence, it would be very unusual for who? Ellen to pull her back in? Doesn't seem likely. It seems more likely that they'd take Dev from the private sector and say, hey, we need fresh thinking.
Oh, man, can you imagine what a twist that would be?
Yeah.
However, as I would expect, NASA's probably going to get defunded through Congress. So their scope is going to get limited greatly.
Is that a good call for the future of this series?
What, that NASA is no longer a part of it?
Yeah, doesn't that seem like it's really going to...
I think it puts NASA as the underdog rather than the other way around, which I like. I think then it becomes a case where NASA is the one who has to kind of cobble things together. Or it becomes a joint NASA-Roscosmos mission so that you split the resource requirement, and then it becomes more international, and then that's another way of introducing more characters from another nationality.
Because there's kind of 3 things that are going to determine this, right? So there's obviously this bill to rein in NASA and somehow oversee it, which we think is going to reduce its budget and reduce the scope of its missions.
Yep.
There is the issue of Margot, which also is probably not good for an independent NASA. And then there's kind of the issue of Kelly's baby, right? Which is one of those kind of like an unknown in terms of how that could have an impact, a perception impact in terms of the importance or the achievements of NASA as well, right? So I feel like these 3 issues, Ellen's ability to veto this bill, Margot's investigation, Kelly and her baby, these are kind of the 3 things I think that are going to somehow combine. And either NASA's going to be unscathed and be kind of this source of national pride, or it's going to be this totally dysfunctional organization that just needs to be, stripped down and rebuilt from the ground up, right?
And I imagine, by the way, so again, one of the quote-unquote throwaway lines was Russia admits that they sold their parts to North Korea, to India, and to, I can't remember who else. There was
Turkey.
One other country. Maybe
Turkey.
China? Oh, Turkey. I think that's their way of trying to kind of introduce the element of India, Turkey into future seasons.
Oh man, I have to say, Pete, this was really a gratifying episode 9 to watch.
Yep.
Just because of and I think this is the best of For All Mankind. For a few episodes, it got a little bit slow. It got a little bit bogged down in some personal issues. I think Danny's behavior really brought me down a little bit as well. But I thought this was the episode that really showed the best of what this show has to offer,
I'm with you. I'm really with you. It's left us wondering what happens. And the beauty is, at this late a stage in the game, we're still wondering what's going to happen in the ultimate episode. More importantly, how is that going to play out in coming seasons? And there are very few shows where you worry about what's going to happen in few seasons because everything gets wrapped up, but very few things get tied together as well in other shows. This one, they do a really good job of kind of indicating where we're going to be in season 4 or the next season.
Yeah.
But we still don't know anything, which I love.
Yeah, we still need, as I mentioned before, more people, although now we're getting a North Korean, and we also saw Dev's college buddy. I don't know his name at all, but at least he had a scene. We may get Sergey back, who knows, but we may get Pam back, who knows, but still I could feel like we need another person or two. Okay, so Pete, thank you for the time talking about For All Mankind.
It was awesome. Thanks so much.
Can't wait until next week.
Super pumped, super excited. Guys, I hope you all are. If you are, tell us aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com or tweet at us at FNS Podcast. Tell us why you're super excited. Tell us why you're not excited. But I still think this is one of the best TV shows available to us on streaming at the moment. Honestly, it's so good.
So good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pete. Have a lovely weekend ahead, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Films and Stuff.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.